What is up, lads? My name is Landon, and today I bring you guys yet again another video. And my last video, pretty funny actually. I uploaded the video, pretty excited about it. Thought my predictions were really well. Thought the video came out pretty darn awesome. I thought it was a good video. And I find out that as soon as I upload, maybe 30 seconds after I press the upload complete, I see the button, I hit save changes, I hit publish. Thieves make an announcement saying that exactly who they're going to pick up in place of Nelson. Now, if you guys are curious, if you guys really want to watch the video, which I would really appreciate it, because I grant it's not going to get very many views at all, because we already know the answer to what my video was all about. Essentially, who has 100 Thieves picked up in place of what would be Nelson? And the question has already been answered. It is going to be Mr. Patrick Price. Nadeshot now owns an organization that Patrick Price is a part of. It's not Optic. It is, though, 100 Thieves, like we just talked about. And you're thinking about it, maybe I wasn't the smartest person in the world for making the video a little bit delayed, essentially, because I waited to upload the video. I was like, you know what, maybe they'll make a change, maybe they'll announce it, and, it was my fault, though. It was realistically, it was my fault for waiting that long to upload the video, because I was hoping that they would already announce their fourth, which, of course, that has not happened until now. So let's go and get right down to the point. Honestly, we all know the issues with 100 Thieves. If you watch the Call of Duty World League, it is their uplinks and their CTFs. I believe in all of the matches so far in the Call of Duty World League, keeping in place that we are in Week 4, just past Week 4, and as it stands, 100 Thieves have won zero. There's zero uplinks. They won one CTF. Now, I'm not sure exactly how many CTFs that they've won because of the fact of 3-0s. How many times have they gone to 3-1? I'm not exactly sure, but it's safe to say that they've lost all of their CTFs except for one, which is probably, a good amount. Also included, they've not won any of their uplinks. And in one of their first games, and I'm glad that we were able to see this first off, because in their first game, I believe it was versus TSM, everyone's expectations for this 100 Thieves roster was that, oh, this team's going to suck. These are a group of guys who don't deserve a victory. They got the W versus TK at the relegation tournament. Like, realistically, no one would be justified. Like, if you were making a video on your predictions about Stage 2, what teams potentially for relegation, beside the fact when we already had the matchups made, when the top 16 teams were announced, and you were seeing all the rosters, I guarantee you that no one thought King Poppy would be in Stage 2. So, of course, time goes on. They end up facing off against Team Caliber, who we all know, of course, wasn't the full team. Gunjar has visa issues. They end up adding Imbos there at the event. And it would be, okay, imagine this, because it would be really, really funny about this whole dynamic, because Team Caliber asked Nadeshot, right? They asked Nadeshot to actually be on this team to substitute to play against King Poppy. Nadeshot says no, but just imagine if Nadeshot would have literally played against King Poppy, loses or wins, preferably because it makes a better storyline that he loses to them, and then he picks up the team to later represent him as his organization. That potentially could have happened. Of course, it doesn't happen, but there still was a potential for that to happen. I just think it's always a funny thing to kind of bring up. But with that in mind, though, of course, the struggles that we've seen with this team undoubtedly are their uplink and CTF game. I said, they're talking about their first TSM game. Their hardpoint was a great victory. Their search and destroy was great as well, but they struggled in uplinks and CTFs. And granted, Nelson was a fantastic player for this team. I think realistically, he was not, and I say the problem, like, right, when you're struggling with 2 out of the 4 game types, there isn't one player who's the problem with that. Like, it's not like, oh, it's examples because he didn't slay very well. It's like, no, it's not that is the problem. It's the fact of your whole teamwork. Like, if you're not winning uplink and CTF, when you've won one game out of 2 game types combined, there is a problem that's not involving one player. So Nelson leaves. They lose in some ways, one of their best SMG players probably on the team. Of course, you do have some great players. When you think of Johnny, you think of Royalty, especially being the captain, being the main slayer for the squad a majority of the time. But you do have Nelson, who is a massive loss for this roster. I talked about my previous video, which I mentioned a numerous amount of times already, which I'm not going to talk about anymore. But in that video, I do talk about, and I go through his twit longer, which case Nelson says, I'm going to go out and celebrate that I'm finally leaving the 100 Thieves roster because I cannot wait to get away from these guys. And it wouldn't surprise me if more roster changes start to loom about. So with that in mind, of course, one roster change has to occur, especially with Season 6 starting to loom up. For those who don't know, I believe that is going to be the roster lock is around Week 6. I'm not sure if it's before, after, whatever, but I know it's around that time. So us just passing Week 4, we could potentially be making a lot more videos as time does go on, whether it's complexity, TSM, the amount of roster changes, rumors that are going on right now are a lot. I think bringing on Aches to this team is honestly a really good addition. I was thinking, Parasite, who do you bring on to this team? Maybe it's Remy because of his previous experience, fills the role correctly, but is he going to change the entire tide of this team's morale? I mean, literally the definition of a veteran. A man who has won, I believe, 19 overall championships at major lands, has represented some of the best brands of all of esports, at least as far as Call of Duty is concerned. To me, he's the perfect person to kind of fill in this role. Now, granted, I'm not really sure how the AR, the SMG situation is going to work out. I think for sure you're going to obviously see Johnny stay with the main AR position. I think Royalty can kind of switch back from an SMG to an AR. Granted, I mean, you could give this guy, what? You give this guy the Dingo, and he would be dropping 40 bombs no matter what, and hard points. Like, it really doesn't matter what gun that Royalty has in his hands, as long as you're putting him in good positions to succeed, he's going to do it regardless of what you want. So with that in mind, I think that's really not going to be an issue with this roster. But like I said, you need someone to kind of bring in some ways, to mature this team, to bring in a more of a figurehead that has experience. I know the issues that Aches had on the Envious roster, really butting heads with Slasher constantly. I don't think that team was really set up for success because of the amount, I don't want to say of egos necessarily, but the amount of big personalities on that team. And I think when it comes down to Untitled Thieves, they're really going to look up to someone like Aches. Of course, I'm sure they've even watched him countless times at LANs. I mean, you got to think these guys are younger players. They haven't really been playing in the limelight as far as being competitive pro players nearly as long as Aches has. I mean, a guy who's been playing, competing at a high level since Modern Warfare 2. I think the most notable player that's been on this team and competing for the longest has probably been Royalty, been competing on a high level since Advanced Warfare, and they really needed someone to kind of fill that massive gap in their game types. And I'm not sure if Aches is going to be the person to do that, but I think he is a very valuable candidate who could definitely make that happen. Of course, when it comes down to their games, the overall strategy behind things I think is going to be really, really important for their game types. Already a great hardpoint team. I don't really think you see a massive slope, or I guess you could say, in their hardpoint game with losing Nelson. I think he was a great player, but I think Aches can in some ways fill that role. I don't think that Nelson and Aches definitely are at a par where one player's way better than the other. I mean, we've seen some incredible games from Aches, and I think what he's been wanting to have for a long time, and what we've seen in the past, is him be the main leader for this team. And I'm honestly really, really looking forward to seeing him in some ways guide some of these younger guys, especially one of them being Royalty, right? And he was in a similar position back in Advanced Warfare when he was on Prophecy. Played alongside, I believe, Aqua and Nogfin, along with Apathy on that Prophecy roster. Now, granted, it wasn't the best team in the world. It wasn't a roster that really thrived that much, but still, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he can mold these guys, especially bring them up. He's got a great group of guys to work with. It would be different if they were struggling in every game type. They weren't really consistent at something, but no, I mean, they are fantastic at hardpoint. We've seen them have incredible games in Search and Destroy. That really was their issue, because you think of a team coming from, in some ways, the online leagues. You think of, when you think of like GBs, UMGs, and stuff like that, you think of hardpoint, you think of especially Search and Destroys mostly, but you only play uplinks to CTFs when it comes down to that. I mean, how often do you play uplink to CTFs if you are a Search and Destroy player? If you're playing UMGs, GBs, how often do you play those? Probably never. Now, I really wasn't surprised to see that team, coming from, in some ways, an amateur background, play these games and really not perform that well in those game types. Now, granted, I thought they'd be a little bit better, but I think that's exactly what Aches is going to kind of natch onto. And I'm sure whenever scrims start to come up, especially in these next couple of weeks, especially this upcoming week, or weekend, I guess you say, for them to scrim, I guarantee that he's going to be on these guys to want to play that much more often. That's the thing. Can Aches, in some ways, granted, he's going to provide a big presence to this team, but to me, is the motivation going to be there, is the question. I think that's what's really on everyone's mind. And I think it's cool, too, because they're going to be leaning on him a lot. Like, he has not necessarily a lot of pressure on his shoulders, but he is the definition of what happens to this team for the rest of the season if other changes don't occur. And I'm sure he's going to be on this team for, until the season ends, of course. But still, he has a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Will Patrick Price show up is the question to be asking right now. Nelson is out of the team, of course, leaving this organization, looking for a team heading into Anaheim, which I'm sure is going to happen, and they fill in with Mr. Patrick Price coming from Envious, and he was on the CLG team. That was a question for me too, because I was talking about Remy. Would he leave the CLG team? Were they under contract? Probably not. That was a pretty stable position for him, but ends up leaving Counterlogic Gaming. Is heading over to 100 Thieves to obviously compete under Nadeshot's organization. Of course, a lot of history with those guys. Not going to go into that. You all know it. A lot of awesome memes going around, of course, with those two in the history that they have with one another. So I'm looking forward to it. Guys, put it down in the comments. Do you guys think, what are you guys really thoughts on Aches being added to this roster? Nadeshot owning an organization that Aches is now under. That was a major question for me. Like, would that ever be something that could happen whenever roster changes we're already thinking about when the 100 Thieves roster was announced in the first place? I never thought it was going to happen, but still, what a time to be alive, am I right? So guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I do appreciate all the support that you guys have been giving me. I want to know also, let's continue this video, this conversation down in the comments, your thoughts on Aches being added to the team. Can he really revolutionize this roster of young guns over on 100 Thieves? That's the question to be asking, and the question I'm looking forward to being answered as weeks do continue on. So yeah, guys, put that all down in the comments. Like I said, Nadeshot now owning an organization that Aches is under. What are your thoughts about that as well? And yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for future content. Really do appreciate it, and I try to upload as quickly as I can, and I will definitely be taking lessons from what was a fail when it comes down to uploading. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching this video yet again. I will see you all later. Have a fantastic day, and until next time, peace out.